say you can upload your memories, so you wouldn't lose memories, then I think probably a lot of people would choose to have it.
But basically achieve a kind of immortality.
Yeah.
It's the first thing in that book there, the Garden of Eden.
For God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God.
The main thing they want you to believe is the supernatural is not real. Why has that been so important for 80 years for you to convince me the supernatural is not real? The obvious answer is, well, because they sort of know they're working for supernatural forces, actually. In the last couple of years, I've been like, holy, they're the only people who know what's going on. So that's the conclusion I've reached. I'm usually pretty curious. I've stopped being curious about this because I don't want to know anymore.
The secret of Masonry, like the secret of life, can be known only by those who seek it, serve it, live it. It cannot be uttered. It can only be felt and acted. William Taft. For centuries, secret organizations have been the ruler of society, operating from the shadows, guiding the course of history, and wielding power in ways that most of us can hardly imagine. Within these secret societies, they share a common thread: hidden knowledge and secrets given only to the elite to navigate and manipulate the fabric of reality in a way that appears to be magical. 33-degree Masonry is one of these elusive societies. And throughout history, some of the most influential figures have been members of the Freemason Brotherhood. From founding fathers like George Washington to visionaries like Benjamin Franklin. Other famous Freemasons include Mozart, Winston Churchill, Mark Twain, Henry Ford, and as many as 14 U.S. presidents, including Andrew Jackson, Franklin Roosevelt, and Harry Truman. And Masonic symbolism can be found everywhere, interwoven into our daily lives in a prominent way. From the all-seeing eye, to the square and compasses seen on buildings, historical markers, and monuments, to the mosaic pavement found in places such as the Congressional Library.
Well, there's this fundamental question of what's the meaning of life? Why do anything at all? For me, it's like, what's the meaning of life? Well, understanding the nature of the universe is of great interest to me, and hopefully to the AI. And that's the mission of XAI and Grok, is to understand the universe.
So do you think people, when you have a Neuralink with 10,000, 100,000 channels, most of the use cases will be communication with AI systems?
So solving basic neurological issues that people have, if they've got damaged neurons in their spinal cord or neck, or as is the case with our first two patients, then this obviously the first order of business is solving fundamental neuron damage in the spinal cord, neck, or in the brain itself. And our second product is called Blindsight, which is to enable people who are completely blind, lost both eyes or optic nerve, or just can't see at all, to be able to see by directly triggering the neurons in the visual cortex. Now I think we're actually going to aim for augmentation with people who have neuron damage. So we're not just aiming to give people a communication data rate equivalent to normal humans. We're aiming to give people who have, quadriplegic or maybe have complete loss of the connection to the brain and body, a communication data rate that exceeds normal humans. While we're in there, why not? Let's give people superpowers.
And the same for vision. As you restore vision, there could be aspects of that restoration that are superhuman.
Yeah, at first the vision restoration will be low res, because you have to say, like, how many neurons can you put in there and trigger, and you can do things where you adjust the electric field. So, like, even if you've got, say, 10,000 neurons, it's not just 10,000 pixels, because you can adjust the field between the neurons and do them in patterns in order to get, say 10,000 electrodes effectively give you I don't know, maybe like having a megapixel or a 10 megapixel situation. And then over time, I think you get to higher resolution than human eyes, and you could also see in different wavelengths. So like Geordie LaForge from Star Trek, like the thing. You could just, do you want to see in radar? No problem. You can see ultraviolet, infrared, eagle vision, whatever you want.
I just recently taken ayahuasca. Can I get that same experience in a Neuralink?
Probably, yeah.
I guess that is the question for non-disabled people. Do you think that there's a lot in our perception, in our experience of the world that could be explored, that could be played with using Neuralink?
Yeah, I mean, Neuralink is really a generalized input-output device. It's reading electrical signals and generating electrical signals, and I mean, everything that you've ever experienced in your whole life, the smell, emotions, all of those are electrical signals. So it's kind of weird to think that that your entire life experience is distilled down to electrical signals from neurons, but that is in fact the case.
That your entire life experience is distilled down to electrical signals from neurons, but that is in fact the case.
According to the Book of Enoch, the Watchers descended in the days of Jared. They remained on the earth from Jared to Noah, to the flood of Noah. That's over 1,000 years that the Watchers had to intermingle with the human species, and that their offspring had to grow and prosper and propagate and dominate the earth and build kingdoms, ruling over the kingdoms of men, and indeed establishing their own kingdoms. And I believe the Watchers did exactly what Plato says that the gods did, the gods of the Greek pantheon. Plato says in the Critias dialogue, Plato says that the gods they apportioned the earth amongst themselves. That's the first thing they did. And we know that Poseidon took for his allotment, he took Atlantis, the area of the region of Atlantis, and he established his kingdom. And then what does Poseidon do? After he's allotted his portion, and then he establishes his kingdom, and then what does he do? He marries a human woman, Cleito. He copulates with her, and she gives birth to 10 hybrid sons who become the 10, and they're twins, so 5 sets of twins. They become the 10 kings of Atlantis. And I think they were giants, and if we're to take that story literal, I think at the very least, that story is an allegory of the antediluvian world. And so I think the Watchers did the very same thing. They allotted the earth among themselves, and they established what I call the empire of the gods, because it's effectively an empire. And each of these Watchers, their hybrid sons would have been the kings of their respective realm. And this might have gone all over the world. And so you would have had, in my estimation, you would have had the gods walking among men, the Watchers, who were venerated as such, as gods, and temples were raised to them, and rather than there being just some idol to them, they would actually be sitting there receiving the adulation of their human subjects in these temples, and their sons, their hybrid sons, would be the kings, literally governing over the kingdoms. And I think we could expect that these would have been quite advanced, at least the knowledge that the Watchers had. That extraterrestrial advanced knowledge would have been deployed and employed in their kingdoms, but not to the commoner. I think that the common people would have been something like a Bronze Age civilization, and that fraternity of hybrid giants would have had advanced knowledge and technology, much like the movie Stargate, in which you have this advanced alien being who is masquerading as Ra, as the god Amun-Ra, with advanced technology, and his guards have these advanced flying machines, aerospace vehicles, and advanced staffs that shoot out projectiles. But the rest of the populace is like a Bronze Age Egyptian populace. I think something like that is an accurate view of the antediluvian world. So you have this fraternity of hybrid giants in possession of advanced technology and knowledge, but only then, and their moms and their fathers, right? So this is what I call the empire of the gods. And you can imagine when those kingdoms go to war, what that would look like. Maybe even atomic level armaments, like nuclear type technology, but something other than nuclear, something perhaps maybe utilizing antimatter or dark matter or something like that. Maybe even those type of weapons were deployed and wrought great destruction on the earth. And maybe this is why, by the way, why do we not find evidence of these advanced civilizations? Because they annihilated themselves. How much evidence would you find of our civilization in 10,000 years from now if we had utterly annihilated ourselves with nuclear missiles? What kind of evidence would remain if we experience a nuclear holocaust? And I'm not saying a bomb drops here and there. I'm saying every single major city is obliterated, right? Because that's the kind of war I think was happening. And then a global cataclysm washes all the debris away in the aftermath. And much of what happens here to the matter, to the material, to the structures, the buildings, the edifices, they're vaporized, they're melted. Right? The artifacts are vaporized in this kind of...
They're melted, right? The artifacts are vaporized in this kind of...
This Masonic symbolism has permeated various aspects of everyday life, often without the explicit recognition of those not familiar with Freemasonry and reflecting the widespread influence of Masonic traditions. Many of the greatest and most prominent minds in history were Freemasons. They had secret knowledge of how to govern and rule their destiny. One of their secrets is a deep understanding of universal laws and principles that govern success, power, and abundance. When harnessed correctly, the secrets they understood led to power and profound influence. What sets these groups apart is their mastery of ancient wisdom and universal principles that many pass by, unaware of the profound impact they can have on their lives. These secrets, which revolve around the laws of the universe itself, are the keys to unlocking potential, achieving greatness, and even altering the course of history. If we ourselves tap into the same magic that these notable figures have used to shape their destinies, principles that are seemingly reserved for the elite and those with knowledge of esoteric wisdom, we may also achieve any greatness that we choose in our own lives. These principles are woven into the fabric of the universe, accessible to anyone willing to seek them out and apply them with intention and purpose. However, the knowledge of how to use these universal secrets to one's advantage remains elusive to the majority. And it's not just about knowing that these laws exist. It's about understanding how they interconnect and how to apply them properly to be in harmony with your personal goals. In this video, I'll unlock 3 secrets of what has been taught behind the closed doors of these organizations and uncover how you can use this to create your reality in very deliberate and precise ways. I'll not only share these principles with you, but also teach you 3 powerful ways to apply them and put them into action so that you harness the innate power within you for massive personal transformation, success, and abundance. Let's talk about a very influential 33-degree Mason, Manly Palmer Hall. Manly Hall was also an author and mystic and made significant contributions to the study and understanding of esoteric philosophy. Hall viewed Freemasonry as a custodian of ancient wisdom and a path to personal transformation and enlightenment, and endeavored to share this in a way that everyone had access to it. This work spans a wide array of subjects, including mysticism, ancient religions, symbolism, and philosophy, but can be somewhat overwhelming and difficult to comprehend. His most notable work, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, published in 1928, is a broad exploration of ancient philosophies, mystical traditions, and secret societies from around the world. It includes discussions on universal truths that form the foundation of human spiritual knowledge, and has been highly regarded within various circles for its depth and exploration on the deeper aspects of Masonic teachings and their interconnectedness with the broader spectrum of mystical and philosophical traditions. Within The Secret Teachings of All Ages, Hall delves into Hermeticism, an ancient spiritual and philosophical tradition. Hermetic principles, as derived from the Hermetic texts like the Emerald Tablet, are pivotal in understanding the workings of the universe, the interconnectivity of all things, and how to apply these universal truths for success and abundance in all areas of life. Manly Hall put great emphasis on the first secret in his works, the principle of mentalism. This is the first Hermetic principle. The all is mind, the universe is mental. This principle underlines the concept that the underlying reality of this universe is that there is one universal mind or field of consciousness, and that all phenomena in the material world are ultimately mental in nature. This foundational belief in the power of the mind to shape reality is a core tenet of Hermetic philosophy, and is echoed throughout Hall's discussions on various mystical traditions. The Hermetic principle of mentalism also finds a parallel in the Masonic teaching that the mind is the foundation of reality. 33rd degree Freemasons are believed to hold the understanding that through the power of thought and intention, one can manifest changes in the physical world. One of their secrets is holding the belief that those who master their minds can master the world around them. The elite, versed in these teachings, use this magical principle to their advantage, shaping societal narratives and outcomes through directed thought and intention.
Use this magical principle to their advantage, shaping societal narratives and outcomes through directed thought and intention.
Lou Elizondo is a man who does know. He's a former Pentagon official who ran this program looking into these subjects. He joins us tonight. Lou, thanks so much for coming on. So, what would possibly be the justification for holding back from the public what the U.S. government, which the public pays for, knows about these objects?
It is my belief that the United States is in possession of exotic material, and unfortunately, that's about all I can say at this time.
People always say, well, Lou, these things are clearly from outer space. And I say, well, let's hold off on that. I often tell people, look, they can be from outer space, inner space, or frankly, the space in between. There's a whole reality around us. There's life in the bottom of the ocean that live and thrive, and they survive off chemosynthesis, not the sun.
You've actually seen what you believe may well be alien technology, an implant. I have.
So they go through satanic rituals to communicate, because that's the only method of communication that they know that works to contact these entities. In doing this, there's a small faction known as the Collins Elite. This is where our film picks up. The Collins Elite was a small group inside of this larger group that was originally created to get answers to all of this. But once they began to engage in satanic rituals and magic and alchemy, this group says, hey, you know what, this is not what we signed up for. This small group raises up. It's a faction. It's a counterpoint group, which means that they're no longer in agreement with the big group. They have a different opinion. They say, we have a Christian worldview. This goes against our Christian worldview. And so they see that entities are being channeled and communicated with, and now technology is being given through these rituals to these other members of the government. So the Collins Elite says, whoa, this is dangerous. You guys are really playing with fire here. We can't support this. We can't do this. And they came up with this idea that the aliens were going to take over, and that in order to protect our country from the aliens, from the entities, they believed that we needed to instate a forced theocracy based on the law of Moses. Because they thought if our country would go back under the law of Moses, that we would be untouchable from these entities. This group, this bigger group that was researching to get answers, they did not exist. Okay, this was what's known as a limited access program, or an LAP. A limited access program means that nobody in Congress has to know about this.
The Collins Elite were a counterpoint group within different governmental organizations that were party to satanic ritual being used to make contact with these aliens or with these higher entities. And because of their Christian faith, they had the conviction. They saw this taking place, and they're like, well, we don't need to be a part of this. This is what the Bible talks about in the worship of demons and of other gods, and especially being, using blood sacrifice and different types of black magic to be able to accomplish it. So they saw that, and they didn't want to be a part of it. They also were able to tie this back to what Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard did in the desert in the late 40s.
You've got literally just a group, and maybe a director knows about it. Nobody else. It's completely classified. It's top secret. It's under lock and key. But I want to mention something. One of the bombshells that we dropped was that there's a declassified federal document Anyone watching this interview can go find this document. It's on the FBI vault. Document 6751 is a document from the 40s. It was written by a prominent member of academia, and it was submitted to the FBI. In this document, they make a case that entities are not space aliens, but that they're interdimensional or extra-dimensional entities that are crossing over from a plane known as the ethereal plane. Now, we know, as researchers of the New Age movement, we know that that is where the ascended masters are supposedly said to be on a high level. This ethereal plane is very popular. When you talk to people who astral project, people who channel, people who remote view, people who want to tap in or go on a trip, an ayahuasca trip, a DMT trip.
Ayahuasca, different trips, DMT, that does allow you to cross over, or allows a person to cross over into those dimensions. Outside of that, the satanic ritual is proven to be the most effective, and from the research that we've done, the people that we've interviewed, that seems to be the constant. That's like it's a guarantee you're going to make contact if you do this.
It's a guarantee you're going to make contact if you do this.
There's a new video this morning that some say may be proof we're not alone in the universe. A UFO in the form of a bright light is seen descending over the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem.
People in American Fork and Highland reported some strange happenings in last night's sky.
They did, and they want to know what was hovering over that area between 7:15 and 7:30 last night. ABC4's Barb Smith is taking action to find out what it was, Barb.
Robert and Karen, they tell us that they saw lights, but those lights were not from an airplane or a helicopter, and these lights dropped something as they hung low over the sky.
An unusual sight over the city of Old Jerusalem is making the rounds on the internet. This YouTube video was reportedly taken along the promenade of Armin Hansiv at about 1 in the morning. The man who posted it says he was there with a friend when a bright light appeared in the sky and descended on the Dome of the Rock. The light appears to just hang in the skyline, but then an energy burst of some kind.
Critics, it's difficult for them to dismiss this because there are so many different angles. We've got 4 different videos, all from various perspectives, showing this light.
אתה מצלם? אתה רואה?
אני רואה מה זה? תגיד שתינו יותר מדי?
לא, לא, כולנו רואים את זה.
מה זה?
שיו!
מה זה?
אמא.
מה זה? ראית? לא בנברות. ראית את זה?
תראה, יש המון.
תראי שם. מה זה?
אמא, לדור, אמא.
יש קבוצה שלמה שם, תראה.
Now, the federal government had this document in the 40s, and language was used in this document that came right out of the playbook of Theosophy. Now, the guy that received this document, this is so crazy. The federal agent receives the document, and look, the FBI is constantly bombarded with phone calls and letters and emails, and they just can't deal with all of the propaganda from citizens. People make stuff up, and it's just it's nothing is crying wolf. So the FBI has to really be careful what they accept and what they don't. But this was back in the 40s. So the guy that receives the document, he recognizes that this information was received through paranormal means. As a matter of fact, the language used in the 40s was super normal. That's the old way of saying paranormal, super normal. So he says that all of this information was received through supernormal means, therefore we need to discount it. It's not valid information. Now, that's the headline that he put it. It's like a cover letter. If you really believe that, why did they classify the document? Why did they classify it and then forward it to all of these FBI prominent members at the highest level of security clearance? Why in the world would they classify it and lock it up if they didn't believe it? It wasn't until years later that they declassified document 6751. And I read this document and I'm thinking, okay, since the 40s, the federal government at the highest levels have known that these are not space aliens, that these are entities coming from another dimension. This group, the Collins Elite, they really wanted to create how can I put this? They wanted to create some type of resistance. Non-aggressive, of course. Non-aggressive resistance. That's what I understand that from my studies. That's what I believe. They wanted a non-aggressive resistance to what was taking place because they saw that when a man or a group of men began to communicate with these entities, the hunger for power gets greater and greater and greater, and then you're no longer trying to get answers. You're now wanting to ask them to give you blessings. You're now getting technology and information from these entities, and you're utilizing it in the way that you structure your government moving forward. And you would say, well, why would these entities need the government? It's not a matter of them needing the government. It's a matter of setting up the scene for the end times deception where the Antichrist is going to unite the governments of the world. It's all part of their long game. They've been working on this since the beginning of time. It didn't work at the Tower of Babel. The Lord ended it quickly. But here we are today. Where are we today, and what happened between then and now? Wow.
It's tough to see in the darkness, but it then appears that blinking red lights are hovering in the sky above, then disappear.
I don't believe in extraterrestrials. Lynette Chittister doesn't believe in close encounters. Neither does Mike Galbraith.
When people tell me this, I think, you're just seeing things or people are making things up.
But last night, both saw something in the sky that they can't explain. Mike was in the Air Force and says the lights hovering in the sky were unlike any he had seen. He was outside a shopping center in American Fork, grabbed his cell phone, and took this video.
But I looked up and there was 3 red lights, and then they started dropping. It looked like flares or something bright was dropping straight down.
Lynette saw it too at her home in Highland.
And I noticed over the roof of the garage a red light and a white light. And the red light isn't flashing. That's like an airplane light does. That's what drew my attention to it.
She says soon there were 3.
And out of the red light comes like a firework, the phosphorescent silver is coming down out of it. And I thought, okay, I've never seen that before.
Both say the objects were flying slowly, almost hovering, and were in formation.
And they looked like they were flying in formation perfectly together, and then whatever was dropping looked like it was burning real bright.
But Galbraith says the lights were without sound and did not belong to any plane or helicopter he was familiar with from his military experience. And he says what was being dropped were not flares.
They usually shoot out the sides or they shoot down, and there's a lot of them, and you could definitely hear them.
Lynette's husband once manufactured military flares. He agreed what was being seen was not a military exercise. But what was it?
The control tower at Provo's airport had nothing to report out of the unusual last night, nor did the county sheriff's department. Salt Lake International's control tower had no incidents, and officials at Camp Williams had nothing to report. So we are reaching out to you.
Plus, what was in the skies over Jerusalem? And why did it stop over one of the most treasured sites in Christianity?
The video is said to be taken over the weekend. Then suddenly the light shoots up into the sky. There you see it. Another video from a different angle appears to show the light doing the same thing. Those clips have gone viral now.
תגיד, שתים לו יותר מדי? לא, לא.
לא, לא, כולנו רואים את זה.
מה זה? חמישה עיניים.
שיו!
יואו! רוד, בלם. מה זה?
מה זה, אמא?
מה זה? ראית? יואו בנברות. ראית את זה?
תראה, יש המון.
תראי שמה. מה זה?
אמא, לדור, אמא.
ג'ודאיזם, מה זה? זה סמלים. יואו. זה לא אמיתי.
But there it is right there. It's at the top of the screen.
Yeah.
It's up there and it hovers, kind of a pulsating orb. And then hold on here because this thing starts going down right toward, you see it there, going down toward the Dome of the Rock and the Temple Mount, and then it stops. And it hovers there for a while. I do not know of anything like this in the Israeli army. So they say this is either incredible video or some very well orchestrated hoax. Some have said maybe this is a movie that's putting out this I don't know. What do you put out for your movie? A trailer or some kind of a hoax to try and promote a movie that's yet to be named? We don't know. Could be Jacob's Ladder. Remember Jacob's Ladder?
No, I don't watch scary films. They freak me out.
Well, no, the biblical thing where Jacob's ladder, was the Jews and the Christians believe Jacob's ladder, who he saw in a dream, leads from the Temple Mount.
I thought that was a thriller that went very scary.
That's what one of the producers said. Yeah. I saw that movie. No, I'm talking about the biblical.
Okay. TJ, thank you.
We're going to follow up on it. You bet.
What do you guys think? What was that?
Antimatter bombs, for example. If we're talking about explosive devices that we can't even, the destruction of which is beyond our imagination right now. Many times more, like an antimatter bomb is many times more destructive than a nuclear warhead. Imagine antimatter bombs going off, hundreds of antimatter bombs going off all over the earth, decimating, annihilating, vaporizing these kingdoms, these hybrid kingdoms, these kingdoms that are being governed by the offspring of the Watchers. The Nephilim kingdoms are being vaporized in a technological war using unimaginably destructive technologies. And then an unimaginably destructive cataclysm ensues in the aftermath. How much of that civilization should you expect to find 10,000 years later? The answer? Almost nothing. That's the answer. Almost nothing.
How do they do this? With 5 simple steps. 1, they hold a conscious intention of their intended outcome. 2, they focus on its realness as an already existing fact. 3, they think, speak, and act as if it's already so. 4, they take inspired action only as the way and means to make it tangible. And 5, they allow the perfection of this universal principle that all is mind to work for them and align with the simplicity of that to provide the desired outcome. Notice that all of this is mental work. Even inspired action, which is much different from effort, comes from the mind. Harnessing the first Hermetic principle, all is mind, involves understanding that your perceptions, beliefs, and thoughts shape your reality. By directing thought and intention deliberately, you influence your life and your environment. Man's status in the natural world is determined, therefore, by the quality of his thinking. Manly Hall. This law of mentalism is more about being than it is about doing. This is why so many can put in a tremendous amount of action and experience limited results. They choose to remain asleep to the power that being holds. But when you become aware of how to align and harmonize your chosen way of being with the principle of mentalism and the other principles that will be mentioned here, you will discover just how simple creating desired outcomes can be. Your only job is to clearly define the intention, what you desire, which will always have a why behind it, a reason. The universal mind's job provides the how and the when, which often includes a who, or several whos. This principle always works, not sometimes, but always. The more intentional, focused, and consistent you are in your being of the 5 steps, the quicker you allow this principle to work for you. Manly Hall, through his extensive writings on esoteric traditions, also wrote about the second secret to the magic taught to the elite Freemasons, the principle of vibration. In both Hermeticism and 33-degree Freemasonry, the principle of vibration, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, highlights the power of energy in its various forms. Hall taught that understanding the vibratory nature of the universe could lead to profound insights into the nature of reality itself. By recognizing that everything has its unique vibrational frequency, from the most ethereal forms of thought and spirit to the most material forms of matter, we can begin to understand the interconnectedness of all things and how that can influence our personal reality. However, the principle of vibration is often perceived to be something that is too complicated for the average person to understand, but it's actually quite simple. Simply put, everything that exists, both seen and unseen, emits a vibrational frequency. Everything is in motion. From the Kabbalion, it's stated, this Hermetic principle was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This principle explains that the differences between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration. An understanding of this principle, with the appropriate formulas, enables Hermetic students to control their own mental vibrations as well as those of others. He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power.
He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power.
So, I think that would be one reason why we don't find much evidence of an advanced ancient civilization, because they literally obliterated themselves, right? And I believe that the cataclysm, the specific cataclysm that ensued, in my estimation, I could be wrong about this is my opinion, is what is known as the Younger Dryas Impact event. And basically, the Younger Dryas Impact event happened at the end of the last ice age, some 12,000 years ago, roughly. And it resulted from fragments of a comet breaking up in the atmosphere or an orbit around the Earth and pummeling the North American ice sheets. The Laurentide ice sheet, North America, for example, which covered most of North America at the end of the last ice age, was a mile to a couple miles deep in certain areas. And this is ice. This is solid ice. This is water, fresh water in the form of ice. And when those fragments of this comet impact, each one of them is itself many times more explosive in destruction than an atomic bomb. And so it generates, it vaporizes everything in the impact zone, right, at ground zero, vaporizes everything, and suddenly melts the ice sheets. And so imagine all of that fresh water, millions of cubic tons of fresh water pouring into the ocean. It would be tidal waves sweeping across the land masses, and not just in North America. And then in concert with this, you have the I think they call it the ejectile or the ejecta, the ejecta, I think it's called, of the superheated fragments of that comet just blasting off hundreds of miles away, landing in forests and just lighting them on fire. So you have extensive biomass burning all over the globe. At the same time, the sheets of ice are melting. It would have caused earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tidal waves sweeping across the oceans. Utter destruction. The utter destruction it's just absolute utter destruction on every landmass on planet Earth. Every continent is experiencing cataclysmic destruction. Any kind of civilization that lives on the shore of the ocean or on the bank of a river, gone, obliterated. It would have been totally flooded, tidal waves washing it away, and ultimately the sea levels rose dramatically. And so this all in the wake, potentially, of a catastrophic, let's call it, nuclear holocaust, right? Probably something even more destructive than nuclear and a different kind of technology. So envision that. You have what would amount to a nuclear holocaust followed by the Younger Dryas Impact event. The Earth being bombarded at the end of the last ice age with these fragments of this comet, precipitating all of the calamitous things I just described, and more, by the way, and more, because it will be followed by a nuclear winter of sorts, which would blot out the sun, all of that debris going up in the atmosphere, blotting out the sun for an extended period of time. What survives this? Only Noah and his family, basically, through the providence of God. Now, do other things survive? Potentially. But we know that Noah and his family were providentially delivered, carried through this cataclysm. So, you can see my perspective of the antediluvian world is much different than you saw in your coloring books in Sunday school.
As long as I'd worked on the UAP issue, I'd heard stories of a powerful circle of religious fundamentalists who shaped policy within the Department of Defense. They were referred to as the Collins Elite. I'd heard the name bandied about, but honestly, I never gave their existence much credence. It was like hearing stories about the long-reaching power of the Illuminati, a secret religious society in the Pentagon. It sounded absurd. Wasn't the day-to-day bureaucracy and existence of the legacy program bad enough to entertain the notion that some generals and their staff of zealots actively promoted a religious agenda which drove policy inside of a sacred yet secular national security institution was simply a bridge too far. Yet I learned that the Collins elite were indeed real. But who were they and what was their agenda? Were they some sort of formal but secret order within the U.S. government that had been part of the institution from its beginnings? Perhaps it was a rogue Masonic lodge that had managed to co-opt senior members of our military. It certainly made me think of the idea of the Illuminati. The more I thought about it, the more paranoid I became and the more conspiratorial it all seemed. I could not have pointed out a member if they passed me in the cafeteria. Later, I learned that several of the group's members were former colleagues and even a former supervisor of mine. For now, they remained elusive. Their ability to operate in complete anonymity was their strength. They were single-minded Pentagon and intelligence community lifers with the power to shape policy and kill programs simply with a whisper or nod. Every action they took was motivated by their religious beliefs. How could this be possible in the United States? Obviously, there should not be a religious-based group in the DoD and IC making decisions based on their theological beliefs. Between the Collins elite and the legacy program, we had two powerful forces that didn't want us doing what we were doing. Both had more resources, and both had differing objectives. One group wanted to kill all efforts to investigate the topic. One wanted to investigate it while keeping the public and us in the dark. Both operated in complete secrecy. I remember a meeting in the fall of 2009 that Jay and I attended with Jim, in which we openly talked about the wisdom of Jim dropping the investigations had gotten involved with that many considered to be dealing with the paranormal and instead focusing solely on UAP threats. I was convinced that if we produced some solid work under the AATIP banner, there wasn't a person in the Pentagon or Congress who could look away, and it would help Jim's efforts. We had found plenty of evidence of extremely advanced craft performing in ways we couldn't replicate and entering controlled U.S. airspace at home and abroad without any repercussions. These facts alone warranted additional resources. Jim refused to lose focus on the overall scope as he felt it was all interrelated. He felt that if he could show DIA and DoD leadership the results of his efforts, any rational individual would see the value of continuing his anomalous investigations. The only problem, the briefing Jim wanted to share with leadership included words like archangels, angels, demons, and spiritual realm. I urged Jim to tone down the paranormal verbiage and focus instead on the importance of this work to U.S. national security. Our UAP investigations made us aware of a very real national security threat, and that was what I felt we had to focus on if we wanted people to pay attention. Lou, it's the truth, Jim said, his voice sounding increasingly frustrated. What's wrong with telling the truth? He had a point. There should never be anything wrong with telling the truth. But in this case, it's how you tell the truth that matters. Jim made a few adjustments to the slides, and we moved on. I felt bad for Jim. The program was his baby, and now people were trying to kill it. Jim believed with all his core that research on Skinwalker Ranch was worth pursuing. As he approached, he put his hands in his pockets and said something in a quiet tone that I'll never forget. Lou, you know we already know what these things are, right? I wasn't sure if Woods was asking a question or making a statement. I'm sorry, sir, I said. What are you specifically referring to? I sensed his annoyance. Deep in my mind, I secretly hoped Woods knew something I didn't. I hoped Woods would reveal to me that these UAP we hunted were actually some sort of secret U.S. technology, hidden deep within the black budgets of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, or the Air Force Research Laboratory. That would have been a welcome relief. Have you read your Bible lately, Lou? He asked. Sir, I am familiar with the Bible, I said. What a strange thing to ask, I thought. Lou, you're opening a can of worms playing with this stuff, Woods said. It was clear to me he was talking about UAP. I can't imagine the look on my face, but I'm sure Woods could tell I was perplexed. It's demonic, he said to me. There is no reason we should be looking into this. We already know what they are and where they come from. They are deceivers, demons. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was a senior intelligence official putting his religious beliefs ahead of national security.
Our entire universe and everything within it, seen and unseen, is a vibrating mass of atoms and subatomic particles. By learning to become consciously aware of this truth and control what vibrations we are creating and emanating within ourselves and projecting into the unified field of consciousness, we can align and harmonize those vibrations to consistently manipulate that field and attract the things that we desire to experience in our lives. The scepter of power. In 33rd degree Freemasonry, they harness this principle, using vibrations such as those in words, symbols, and rituals to influence the energy of their surroundings and create desired outcomes. During Masonic rituals, specific words and phrases are recited with deliberate intention, each chosen for their historical significance and vibrational quality. These words are believed to carry specific energies that, when voiced with collective focus and intention, can elevate the vibrational frequency of the space and the individuals present. This deliberate engagement with vibrational energies reflects a profound understanding of how subtle forces can be directed to shape reality, illustrating the deep esoteric knowledge embedded within the highest ranks of Freemasonry. It is a sophisticated method of shaping reality, demonstrating that the universe's very fabric can be altered through sound, thought, and intention. Man is thus surrounded by a supersensible universe, of which he knows nothing because the centers of sense perception within himself have not been developed sufficiently to respond to the subtler rates of vibration of which that universe is composed. Manly Hall. So how can you use this second secret, the scepter of power and vibrational frequency, to accomplish the same things in your life?
So, I mean, you could trigger the right neuron, you could trigger a particular scent, you could certainly make things glow. I mean, do pretty much anything. And what is death but the loss of memory? Loss of information. If you could say, like, well, if you could be, you run a thought experiment, what if you were disintegrated painlessly and then reintegrated a moment later, like teleportation, I guess, provided there's no information loss. The fact that your one body was disintegrated is irrelevant.
And memories is just such a huge part of that.
Death is fundamentally the loss of information, the loss of memory.
So if we can store them as accurately as possible, we basically achieve a kind of immortality.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be a world in the next couple of decades where it's hundreds of millions of people have Neuralinks?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think when they see the capabilities, the superhuman capabilities that are possible, and then the safety is demonstrated?
Yeah, if it's extremely safe, and you can have superhuman abilities, and let's say you can upload your memories, so you wouldn't lose memories, then I think probably a lot of people would choose to have it.
I think it's exciting and scary for people because once you have a very high bit rate, that changes the human experience in a way that's very hard to imagine.
Yeah, we would be something different. I mean, some sort of futuristic cyborg. We're obviously talking about, by the way, like, it's not like around the corner. It's, you asked me what the distant future is, like, maybe this is like, it's not super far away, but 10, 15 years, that kind of thing.
When can I get one? 10 years?
Probably less than 10 years. Depends on what you want to do,
Hey, if I can get like 1,000 BPS.
1,000 BPS.
And it's safe, and I can just interact with the computer while laying back and eating Cheetos.
that I can just interact with the computer while laying back and eating Cheetos.